Before we start, please shut off your, or silence your electronic devices. If you can have a private conversation, please take it outside. First up, minutes, February 13th. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes, and I found them to be representative of the meeting, and I move approval.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next up, request for continuance under notice of intent, Patrick and Phyllis McDevitt, number 5, North Chop Lane, East Falmouth, Mass., for permission to reconstruct existing stone riprap and incorporate new granite steps within the riprap.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until March 13th.
So move.
We have a motion, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of continuing to March 13th?
Question?
I'm sorry. What's the reason?
We went out there and the mitigation plantings that were previously planted for the house are now lawn.
Okay.
So the applicant's representative is
Working on a reappearance.
working on a site plan, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem, Courtney.
Okay.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Request for determination of applicability, THO of Massachusetts, SHM Fiddler's Cove LLC, 42 Fiddler's Cove Road, Falmouth, North Falmouth, Mass., for permission to repair a failing asphalt wash pad.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the staff recommends a -2 determination under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed by this RDA.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous, so moved. Next up, Thomas and Diane Rowley, number 29, Nauset Ave, East Falmouth, Mass., for permission to pump, fill, and abandon existing cesspools and upgrade to a Title V septic system.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the staff recommends a -2 determination under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed by this RDA.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous. Continued request for determination of applicability. Donna Spardella, number 38, Deer Run Lane, North Falmouth, Mass., for permission to expand existing deck, construct an addition over the existing porch, install mitigation plantings for after-the-fact approval of an unpermitted patio.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the staff recommends a -2 determination under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed by this RDA.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous, so moved. P&B Realty Trust, 47 Gunning Point Ave, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to license an existing stone riprap seawall and existing stone groin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this was a request to basically legitimize the wall so the applicant could seek Chapter 91 permitting. As you can see, there is the wall. We were presented with a topo map from 1975 that labels that area as riprap. We have a Chapter 91 license, an interim Chapter 91 license from 1995 that shows the groin. If you can go back one, Brendan, the groin and the stone steps on the wall, but doesn't actually show the wall itself, which is kind of odd. And we've been presented with photos from DEP's files, I think they're around 1995, that show that area. Doesn't look like there's a wall, but it's really hard to tell in these types of situations when you have a lot of dumped stone. The best assessment the staff can offer is that, I mean, obviously the wall has been there, it's been there for a while. whether it was put in between 95 and when what I can speak of is it was not, we don't have any permits for it, we don't have any notice of intents for it, and it wasn't permitted since I've been here since 2005, and we can't find any files on it, so. Right now, our tentative recommendation is a -4, to go forward with Chapter 91 licensing. Jeff, I think the applicant's representative is here. Jeff Ryther may want to say a few words, and I do believe there are some abutter concerns, and they would like the opportunity to speak as well. Okay? You can leave those pictures, well, no, I guess, yeah.
Does Jeff have a presentation?
I don't know. He came in. No, Jeff's here. He's right there. Thank you, Flounder.
Which one?
Hello, good evening. I'm Jeff Ryther with BSS,
Did you have anything to add?
representing the applicant. And like Jen had just mentioned, there are, out there for the waterfront structures, there are the wall itself, the stone riprap, the groin, and the stairway. And the groin and stairway show up in the 1995 license.
Where's that license?
Jen had mentioned, maybe we can pass these. I marked them in where, this comes from a 1975 map.
Got it.
Numbers in red represent the license number. So my client asked me to license this because he was told that he's got 1 year from when he closed on the house to get his waterfront structures licensed, I'm sorry. So he's in the middle of that, and we prepared license plans, which are here. But we need a local permit before we file. So we filed this. Turns out that, we do have, the groin on the old map, the 1975 map. And let me just get this in the right position. And you'll see in between each groin, there's the word riprap, and it's all the way down the shoreline. Again, this is 1975, so it suggests we could grandfather this waterfront structure and the groin itself. The groin, again, is licensed for 8 more months. We hope to have this this plan approved. I think it's in your package. This is the license plans. And that's about it. It's 160 foot long. It's been there at least before 75, as well as the riprap. So that should wrap it up. I think somebody else is going to speak.
You good, Jeff?
Hmm?
Good?
Yeah, I didn't know if somebody else was coming up.
Oh, yeah. Want to start?
Yes. Jen or Brendan, did you check any of
the aerial photos from way back when?
Yes, actually, we have these that were given to us, and I believe they're in a presentation you're about to see. I think these are from around mid-90s. It's really hard to tell, Peter, in the aerials, so that's, I think, that's the groins. This is the property we're looking at. It's
Okay.
really hard, it's just really difficult to tell in some of these aerials whether it's a revetment, if it's a lot of those unconsolidated boulders. Do you
Okay.
wanna keep that?
And your recommendation is -4?
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, unless we have,
Which is a-
unless we can be shown a picture that that bank was not
Okay,
revetted, I mean, it's really difficult
okay. No further
You know.
questions?
for the staff to make an absolute determination, was it there, wasn't it there? We're just going on the best information that we have.
Thanks.
Can I speak on that? Would be okay?
Go ahead.
There is an aerial from 1975 in which the 1975 topo was based on, but you can't really see the walls. It's just washed out, so I didn't even bring it in for you. But there's just a little bit of wall shown. It wouldn't have done you any good, so.
Thank you. Steve, you-
Oh,
Just remind me what -4 is, please, Mr. Lynch?
No work is to be done, and it's out of resource areas.
well, it's not out of resource,
I
it's just
mean,
no work
no work to be
is
done.
being proposed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to legitimize what they
I have
have.
no other questions.
Kevin?
This is a tough one.
Okay, I give up.
Yeah, right.
No questions.
Courtney?
Okay, because there's some rooms that we can't get.
It's one of these situations, Gunning Point's pretty bony.
Mhm.
And, as naturally. So the shoreline itself can lead to rock rubble and so on without necessarily an improvement. What I'm concerned about here is that, I don't think we have enough information to make a determination, so I can't support this.
Okay.
Good. I'm looking at the interim approval, and it doesn't show, it's just not illustrated in that. Anything else from the board? Any comments from the public? Please use the podium and tell us your name for the record.
And this is the one he gave.
Okay, that's fine. Where's my license?
It's in there.
You have it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about this, but where do I see the,
Yes. Maureen, you need some help?
yeah, I'm looking for my USB on here. Oh, okay. All right, yeah, okay. No. Wait a second, let me try again.
Oh, you broke it.
Yeah, you have a letter from me
Oh,
and
yes.
it has yeah.
It's in
Oh,
the
okay. I think that,
Did you?
yeah.
Did you see
This
that?
is Daryl.
Okay, so my name is My name is Maureen Conti. Okay, so my name is Maureen Conti, and I'm a resident of Sippawisset, and specifically, I'm one of the homeowners in the Sippawisset subdivision. So about 180 homeowners have deeded rights of access to the area in question. So the reason why we're so concerned about this, and here's a typical picture, just to give a little prefix, here's a little typical picture of Gunning Point Beach during the summers in the 1990s when I bought our property. And this was before we had this extensive armoring of Gunning Point Beach in the early 2000s. So you can see, nice sandy beach, great. Here's what our beach looks like today, and this is what our beaches look like for most of the summers in the last couple of years. And the problem is this beach is now totally starved off by coastal armoring, and the only sand that exists in the system now is deflected offshore, and you can see this a great picture, aerial imagery showing all this sand that's deflected offshore, and it shows almost a seawall along here, which is all of this armoring that was done, which has been a big problem. And it also shows a lot of these existing groins. A lot of that area was armored, but it was allowed to degrade. And then in the early 2000s, it was extensively armored again, leading to the problems that we have. So we've all talked about this 1995 interim approval. The important point here is that approval was to maintain existing stone groin and stairs. And that was the only thing. There was nothing in it ever that said anything about riprap when the approval was issued. And if you look at the plans that were associated with that, you see down here 160-foot groin and some existing rocks. It gives you what the dimensions of those are for making a stone staircase. And if you look at the plan, what you see is you see the toe of that groin. It starts about 9 feet away, it says, from the a coastal bank, and it specifically says intertidal rocky, intertidal natural shore with a 10-foot bank. So it's also noted the height of that jetty. So here's the aerial imagery you're talking about. I don't have exactly what the date is, but if we look at the close-up here, we can see on the top, you can see there's this old degraded riprap up on the top. And then you can see it turns into sort of, it's, rocky, but it's all a natural beach area. And if we look here, we can see this is all a natural beach area along here, and it extends all the way down to Flume Pond. Well, what happened was in 2002, there was an application to repair the riprap on the adjacent property. There was some of that degraded riprap, and then this part, it doesn't really show what the existing conditions plan was. Anyway, what's interesting about this plan is it says beach grass not to be disturbed during the construction. Again, pretty indicative that there wasn't any riprap there. Well, what happened in about 2003, 2004, this is this McCready mansion here, and they had just completed all this riprap all along here. They were starting to do this other stuff. They got it permitted after the fact. Here's almost like a seawall that goes all the way here. And now what do you see? During that construction, now it extends right here, right into this area that never had anything. And now we also see this groin, which started off, is now extending landward. So later on, about 2003, a plan was prepared for salt ponds because they became the owner of all this coastal access property, of which the Sippawisset subdivision, of which we all have access to. So here's the plan prepared for salt ponds, and here's the area with the groin area. And what you can see now is here's the groin, and during this plan, you can see there's all the riprap, and they even started riprapping down into here. Here's this riprap extension, a change in the configuration of the steps, and an extension of the groin all the way to the toe of the riprap. So the thing that's important about that is that those alterations actually void the 1995 interim approval, specifically because the standard conditions of these approvals say in paragraph 2 that any structural alteration requires a waterways license, but most importantly, that any unauthorized structural alteration of any structure shall render the interim approval void. So not only was there no riprap, right now, because of alteration of the structures themselves, they voided the interim approval. So there's basically no approval for anything on this property now. And I would ask that the Concom could actually help our neighborhood and help the town of Falmouth by asking the new owner of this property actually remove these structures and let this area start to revert back to a natural condition. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman. I just want to make an observation that normally when, in past years, I've been on this board since 2003, when a presentation for an RDA is going to take more than 5 minutes, that maybe it's the wrong place to hear this. So we should think about that.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Michael Eder, I live on Gunning Point. One thing I wanted to point out is I think you have a number of letters from at least 3 long-term residents attesting that that wall did not exist prior to 2002. While I didn't stand there and watch the wall get built, we know that there was a major wall construction done over the winter of 2002 to 2003. If you could bring up your other pictures, or maybe you want to see it, I'm not a geologist, but the stones look awful exactly the same as a continuation of the wall. They look like they've worn the same, so I'm pretty sure they just got added, and your pictures, I think, showed that, because you couldn't see where one wall ends and the other one starts. If it was built 30 years earlier, I don't think they'd look the same, and the characteristics of the stones are all the same. And as pointed out, the plans adjacent clearly stated that it was natural buffer there not to be disturbed, and it doesn't seem to me that DP at that time, what was going on is they were granting these interim licenses for structures that had been there. If you look at the interim license for the adjacent property, they clearly show all the existing riprap and everything that was there for a property 2 down done about the same time, 1 year later. And as pointed out, that I've seen that topology map a few times. It shows extensive riprap where there is none and never was any. As the applicant said, it was based on a 1995 plan. The purpose of it was not to show riprap, it was to just show topology. So that plan, we've looked at it, it doesn't make sense. You've got direct plans showing that area that show no riprap there, that were for that lot or the adjacent lots. I'm happy to submit these to you if you want them.
Thank you.
You have the original plan. This is the one you can see is almost exactly the same. It's on the DP in the back of it. This is the characteristics. And then this was done for the licensing as well as for your approval of that riprap, which shows the adjacent being no riprap there. And clearly showing that they're not to disturb the natural grass. And that was when the adjacent property got permitted in 2002, 2003, and also the DP license.
Yeah, my concern here is,
Thank you.
I'm not prepared to make a judgment about who's right, who's wrong. I don't think we have enough evidence. I think, I can't support this application in this format. I think notice of intent, in which which the applicant presents a good deal more proof of the situation, is much more appropriate a forum than an RDA. So I can't support it.
We'll go for a motion in a second.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So if you have a can I ask you, Ms. McKay?
Sure.
If you have a Chapter 91 license and you alter the original permit, who would then say you don't have a permit anymore? Who has, is
state.
that our authority? No.
State.
Since it's a 91, that would be the
Yep.
state. And how would they become aware of such things, or are they ever
Usually
those
if,
issues to your attention?
usually if a project changes, the scope of the project changes, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, you can go for a modification of a Chapter 91 license, and it's a certain percentage, I believe, of the structure and dock or abutment, something like that. In this case, it's an interim, so they have 1 year from the date that the property is sold to have apply for a regular Chapter 91 license, which is what they're trying to do.
Okay.
So, but the state is the one that regulates it. The state needs local approval in order to process
Yeah, I
that
understand that,
application,
but- I mean, obviously, these alterations occur elsewhere as well as here.
I mean, I think what this board can do is you can continue it and see if Jeff can provide additional information that would alleviate some of your concerns and provide more concrete evidence that the wall is and was constructed either prior to our regulations or with a permit. We can't find one. And then at that point, Courtney, if you're still not convinced, then you can issue a positive. But I would, at this point, seeing how the board is leaning, I would recommend ask Jeff if he would like continuance to see if he can get some more information instead of just, he's heard it from you, so,
It's just,
I
we're
understand.
spending entirely too
I
much
understand,
time
Courtney.
on an RDA.
I understand, Courtney.
Jeff?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a bit puzzled because I'm certainly trying to do the right thing here. You know, if you need a license, you apply for one. The first step is to come get your local permit from the Conservation Commission. So here I am trying to do that. I was continued already once on some other issues. Again, it's an existing wall. It shows on the this is the whole sheet of the 75 topo here. This is the groin. It says riprap between every groin. So you can see it. I got a dated map. Now, there's not too many photographs or maps out there that have dates on them, but I found one here. And I don't know why that's not good enough. Certainly the 95 license what's there now. I don't see why we couldn't just license that. The folks that were up here asked me to look into removing it. I mean, you gotta be kidding me, you know? That's not gonna happen. So,
Is that topo map what you gave us earlier?
yeah, I give you a piece of it. I can give you the whole thing. I did send it by PDF to the office.
We have a copy of it here. I'll give you the copy Steve gave me.
This is the 75 one.
That's the 75. Here's the other one, Courtney. Pass that down, Courtney. There's one for you.
Hold on, please. Hold on, please.
Oh, I just want to say one other thing. I kept my presentation to just a few minutes, knowing it's an RDA.
Right.
This office allowed the whole rigmarole here. I didn't, I got my stick too, but I didn't want to bring it up, you know?
Courtney, some of those down?
There's the two.
But it shows it not connected, it just shows,
They're the same.
Yes, but it does show quite a bit, and it's outlined. Again, this is from an aerial photograph, so you don't know if they have it perfect or not.
Indicates it, but. Can I ask? The red indications on here were done by,
Well, by me, the red
yeah,
itself, I did that, to show you the extent of the dash. If you look at the dash line type, that's the outline of the riprap.
so, yeah, but it,
so the
not
riprap
continuous.
isn't continuous.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just showing you what
It-
was
it
there in
looks like it's been-
1975.
looking at the,
All right, we need to.
that 75 plot plan, or whatever it
I
is,
hate to drag everybody back again.
or topo, there's sort of these areas of riprap, but it's not contiguous. So,
I'm
you
not
know,
sure.
how it's contiguous, and where was the permitting for that?
1975 is before the act. It's a grandfathered structure.
When did it become contiguous?
I don't know the answer.
So,
I've been looking for the photographs and, you know,
here we are. This is a dilemma.
I understand.
Okay.
I don't know how to fix this. Every other home there it's a continuous riprap today. If you pulled out just that one section from in front of that house, you'd have a big gouge occurring. You know, damage it's done, you know, I'm sorry, but you just have to live with the way it is today, unless you take it out from everybody. You can't just pull out one, just say, you know. I
Okay.
mean, I can tell you that probably half of those walls aren't licensed. I'm gonna that's a guess, but,
Not helping your point, Jeff.
pardon me?
That's not helping you.
No, but I'm just saying that,
I
you
know.
know, you go up and down the shore and half the docks are licensed and half aren't, you know?
I have
Any
trouble
more
with
comments from the
I
board?
just have trouble with the leap of faith, that's all.
Okay.
Great, so continue it.
So Maureen Conti again. You know, we use this area a lot. We snorkel a lot. We walk that beach all the time. I know exactly when that riprap was installed. It was installed at the same time as the McCready Mansion. That entire armoring seawall, which is the reason why I had my preface, was because that was the result of that armoring of Gunning Point. It didn't look like that before the armory, and this is what it looks like now. And that riprap on 47 was installed exactly the same time as all that other riprap. McCready went all the way around the point, all the way through 47, and then into part of the adjacent property. The only people that we're aware of that had, and I could be wrong, I have to defer to some of the other residents, is number 45, and that they got a license before they installed that.
We're gonna
Michael might
Maureen,
know more.
can I ask a question? When was?
We watched it, so we
when
know
did-
exactly when it
When did
happened.
the McCready wall go in?
It was like 2002, 2003. 2003 was when it went in, and the picture I showed you was when the house was under construction and they had just finished the wall. And the other thing I wanted to say was, in deference to that topo map, didn't you just say it was a bad aerial photography, so you couldn't really tell?
75.
Yeah. So anyway, in 1998, or it's somewhere between 1995 and 1998 was when that other aerial photography was, and I think it was pretty clear you could see that there wasn't any riprap there.
Hi, I'm sorry, I know this is just an RDA, and we want to make it quick, so I'm going to be really quick, but as Mr. Bird knows, I've been before this board regarding these walls for many, many years and many times right now, and Ms. McKay knows that as well. The applicant's basic argument is it's one continuous wall. I've been arguing this should never have been permitted as separate permits for all these properties because it's one continuous wall. So the argument here that there's other walls existing, they've all come to you separately. They've all now been licensed because we've gone to DEP, and the applicants have licensed 47, which was the old McCready property, the large one. The property next to it, Salmon, has been licensed. This project had its interim license for a groin, which the state granted. They did as the plans I showed you for Keys. This never got licensed. It was just built as you know, the owner said, hey, you're building, just add to me. And it's clear that that's what happened here. And we don't have pictures. There's lots of pictures we have of our beach prior to the building of these walls. We have actually, there's probably about 200 homes if you include the Cape Codder. This has destroyed a beach. You know how valuable those beaches are? I mean, when you sell a house that has beach rights, we've lost what used to be a beautiful sandy beach for my whole life before those walls. And your regulations don't allow these walls because of that. They talk about how damaging these walls are to downdrift beaches throughout your regulations. And, you know, at least the other applicants, well, I have problems with those. They at least came to you and got permission. This was just built. And by the way, this topo plan shows, besides the fact that it shows riprap where there is no riprap, clearly.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
I'd like to make a move for positive determination.
I'd second that.
Hold on.
Negative would, I believe a negative would be,
Supporting the
Supporting
staff
it.
recommendation.
I'm making a motion for a positive on this.
To accept their recommendation.
No, what Courtney's saying is he's not accepting staff's recommendation.
Not
I just want to
accepting,
be clear that,
we should make a positive determination, not a negative determination. A negative determination says the project can proceed.
so you
Hold
want
on
to
1
vote?
second though, Courtney. Susan, did they already make a motion to, they didn't make it?
No, there was no motion yet.
Okay, all right. Go on, Courtney.
So that's my motion, positive determination.
Can we do it that way?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's without prejudice. They can reapply with the notice of intent if they want.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have positive motion. Did I hear you second it?
Second.
Just clarifying.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of a positive motion, say aye.
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Oh, I'm asking, I'm not.
I know.
Okay. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We have 4 for the positive, 1 for the negatives. The positive passes. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Thanks for the clarification.
No, not a problem.
Thanks for the history.
Sorry.
Those are always tough
I've never
ones.
seen one take more than 2 minutes.
It's become much too much.
I never saw one take more than a minute or so. My brief history.
Okay.
They have to take.
Next up, request for hearings under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single, decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Town of Falmouth, care of Greg Fraser, Harbor Master, 0 Town Landing Road, map 32-21-015-000, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct the existing boat ramp.
Excuse me, good evening, Greg Fraser, I'm the harbor master. With your permission, I would like to ask,
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Am I misreading the agenda?
Yeah.
My agenda shows.
So does mine.
We did actually switch the order of the agenda.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
So what are we doing?
No, Town of Falmouth, we got it.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Fraser.
With
We
your
just
permission,
switched
I'd
the
like
order
to
for the problem
introduce
from Paula.
Brett Sherry, he is for the Office of Fish and Boating, and this is one of the many ramps in the town of Falmouth that are under contract with the state. The state will be moving forward with the engineering and construction if you approve this project and we get the other approvals that we need.
Brett Cherry, Department of Fish and Game, Fish and Boat Access. What we do is we work with towns like yourself. We try to provide access to cities and towns wherever we can. And with your help, typically what happens is the town will manage the property. We'll actually come in, construct, and any repairs that need to be done. Here's the Seaport Landing boat ramp. As you can see, it's been in disrepair. What it is it's got 6-inch curbs on each side right here. Deteriorated. What happened is a lot of the curbs that were constructed during that time didn't have enough cover, so over time they just kind of disintegrated. You go a little further. Let's see. Our project, what we're doing is we're looking at repairing just the ramp. Further down the ramp, what it has 10 actual precast pads that extend over. And it looks like a repair maybe in the past. This was before us, so I'm not really sure what the repair was. During low tide, you get about 2 feet of water, high tide 3 feet. So what we would do, so what we're proposing, so here's the boat ramp right here. There is land under ocean. We spoke with Marine Fish. The ramp will be extended by 4 feet. It will be widened by 6 inches on each side. The actual clear path will remain 12 feet. The 6-inch curves will be 1 foot curves, so the ramp will actually be 14 feet instead of the 13 feet that's existing. The land under the ocean, the ramp will be extended by 4 feet. The actual existing pads, which are 1.5 foot precast, those will be made into 6 foot. The reason we do this is just it seems to last longer. We group them, so that way you get more traction. The extension, the 4 feet that we're extending into it, it is in, unfortunately, a shellfish area. So what we'll have to do for that, speaking to Marine Fish, and mitigation will be required. That is 4 feet by 14 for 56 feet. Time area restriction for Marine Fish also would be from January to approximately May. Silk curtain will be used, would have to be installed prior to that date. For construction, typically what would happen is we come to the site. This site right here, we're not totally extremely grade. We'll use the ramp afterwards. That's because parking in this area is very, very scarce. There's not enough parking. Parking spaces for trailers are 30 feet. Our typical spaces are 40 feet. So I mean, this is a ramp for small boats, car top boats. And for that reason, we're not proposing to extend it and anything. We want to keep it almost as is, with as little change as possible. For that, we're basically keeping the same footprint other than extending the curbs and the actual ramp by 4 feet. And that's just to give it a little more, the big crown wash hole on the bottom. So what we want to do is just try to extend it so there's not as big of a crown wash hole. For erosion control, up top, we would put a silt fence. That would be done first prior to construction. The contractor would come in, demo out the existing ramp. This should take a couple days. No stockpiling is anticipated on site. Once the ramp is removed, we take a look at the actual gravel subbase. Typically, these older ramps, they have a pretty good gravel subbase. So we have to take a scoop, basically, just to make sure it's at least 12 inches, which the older ramps, we haven't had much issue. If there isn't a good subbase, if it's mucky, there's not enough 12 inches subbase, we come in, put the 12 inches of subbase. Below the mean high tide line, which is shown right here, we would do the precast all the way down. This is within the actual silt curtain. Above the mean high tide line, we typically would do a cast in place. Cast in place just gives a good anchor. The pads would be attached with 6 stainless steel straps. These straps just keep them from shifting. We've used this quite a few places. Megansett was one of them. Megansett was constructed back in 2005. It actually had 16 precast pads, this 6-foot pads. This is only showing 5.
Please stick around the microphone.
Oh, yep, sorry. Yeah, no problem. Other than that, I mean, we have used cofferdams in the past. It usually comes up. With this ramp right here, at low tide, there's 2 feet. So, I mean, a contractor would be working in knee depth. So what we did is we proposed a silt curtain that goes all the way to the bottom. And what that is it's ballast, they'll anchor it. That seems to keep sedimentation within it. The reason we don't really want to do a cofferdam, for one, not that much water. 2, you're really changing the footprint on it. So when you extend that footprint into an area that contains shellfish, different things, it requires more mitigation. And there's really not much to gain in this instance. Megansett Harbor, like I said, that had a lot bigger than the 1-foot tide change, and that was done underwater. Harrington Street too. So we have done that in the past. The total ramp length right now, we're looking at 65 feet. It's going to change to 69 feet. That's the 4 feet that I talked about. The width, 13 feet. It's going to change to 4 feet. That's going to include a little bit of extra bank work. So you're going to extend in the bank 6 inches each side. No salt marsh was observed. You have some brush and grass in the area, but nothing else was observed, and the silt fence is right above that area. No pavement is proposed at this time. That's pretty much it. That's what we're looking to do. It's almost we're almost trying to replace the ramp. We don't want to extend it because the problem was extending the ramp. If you start going to 3-4 feet, Child's River we replaced recently, right around the corner. If you extend the ramp and you get that, you're going to get bigger boats there, and that's not our intent in this. We want to keep it to the small boats and car top boats. So, any questions, or you want to add anything, Greg?
Just that we would like to proceed. I know I've spoken to Peter McConaty. The town, just as we did with Child's River, the state handles the ramp. They don't get involved in the road. We would then move forward with our own DPW and redo that access road and the small parking lot, and then put in any required drainage that's required by the DPW and the Conservation Commission when we do them. So the process would be the exact same that we use for Child's River, which is the state just deals with the ramp. They don't do the upland portion. The upland portion would be handled by the DPW, and that will require coming back to you for that.
Thank you. Jen?
Only question, Brett.
Yep.
The shellfish, you said DMF is gonna require mitigation. Is there any, proposal to relay them out prior to construction, or?
We're in discussions right now. We gotta look at what the fee would be
To relay them out?
to do that. So that, typically what would happen is either we would pay an in lieu fee for not doing that, or lay them out. But we want to see what the complete footprint would be. If you did require a cofferdam for some reason, the footprint would actually be a lot larger. So that would change things in itself. We do have some contractors who will come in and they want to do a cofferdam. It won't be in the bid. And what I did is I included in the actual NOI what that would be. The pump out would be within the curtain, that type of stuff. But for the most part, I don't predict a cofferdam would be used in this instance.
Jennifer, I could just, as far as the mitigation, I have spoken, Chuck's been involved in this project. He has offered the Shellfish Department to remove any shellfish that the state
perfect.
wants, and relay anything out of there before the construction.
Excellent, thank you, Greg. That's it
Mr. Chairman, Brenda? We're good.
Steve?
I'm all set.
Kevin?
Thank you.
No questions.
Courtney?
Shellfish are, cohogs or?
Quahogs, and the time of year restriction will be for winter flounder.
Yeah, so there's no soft shells, it's all.
No soft shells, anything like that, just quahogs.
So relaying them wouldn't be a big issue.
No, and I've been out to the site a couple times. I spoke to Marine Fish, they haven't been to the site. What it is at that location, it's a prop wash hole. So it's a huge hole where boats are coming out because there is only 2 feet at low tide. There's a lot of power loading going on, different things, so, speaking with Greg and different people, I don't foresee personally anything being in that location, but anything is, we would relocate.
No other questions?
Thank you. Peter?
With the end of the ramp and low tide,
Yep.
what's the difference between the proposed ramp and the existing ramp in inches or feet or whatever?
Yeah, in the existing right now, you're looking at elevation of minus 1.3. At the proposed, you're looking at minus 1.75, so it's a little less than the 2 feet at low tide. I mean, we would like 2 feet if possible, but you really have to extend out. And what happens is after that prop wash hole, you've been to the site, it ends up coming back up, and it ends up being a shelf after that. So the further you extend it, you just get right into that shelf anyways. So we don't see any reason to really extend it to that shelf, because then you get into a little bit of dredging required, and not just that, but you end up hitting that shelf anyways.
So the depression, the hole from the prop wash
Yep.
is going to be filled or covered over with the extension?
The prop wash hole right now, if you extend it down, it's almost what it is. It's almost because the boats extend past it at this point. It's almost become like a natural depression. So what it does is it kind of goes down and up. So anything at the bottom of the prop wash hole, we would add a foot of gravel to below it, just to stock it up, and that will give the base. So we'd add a foot of base, and then for that 4-foot extension, and add the pad on top of that.
So the prop wash
Yep.
problem would be gone?
The extension will help it a little bit. The problem is, even after you try to fix it, it's just gonna happen again. And the only way to fix a prop wash hole, unfortunately, is you gotta extend the ramp we usually extend it at least 10 feet on top of the 3 feet. So you'd be looking at this one, if you wanna get the 3-foot depth plus the prop wash hole, you're looking at extending the ramp probably 20, 30 feet.
Thank you. No further questions?
We would love to do that, but yeah.
Peter, we can put a sign that says no power loading the roads, but
We
the
do on
reality is it happens.
our sites, we do put no power loading signs, and they usually get laughed at. But unfortunately, I mean, people power load, and unless someone's there to see it, you can't stop it. It's a common issue, and without extending the ramps, there's nothing you can do to add base. If you add gravel there, fill up with gravel, different stuff, what happens is people end up getting gravel in their motors. So you get a call for that, so it's a losing battle, unfortunately. Sorry. Any other questions?
Feedback, for lack of a better word, from the local shellfishermen? Support or otherwise? Any input, I should say.
I can say I haven't had any negative comments, because we're basically replacing as is. There's very little change.
I've been out there quite a bit, taking measurements. We did the shots in-house and stuff. I've spoken to a lot of shell fishermen myself. They're all in favor of it, as long as we don't extend it. What they don't want is they don't want that depth at the end of the ramp, because right now they can launch out with their small boats. If you start getting that 3-foot depth or more, you're gonna get bigger boats in there, and it's already a very popular site. So their concern is, you extend it, you get more depth at the bottom of the ramp, it's gonna become more popular, and they're not gonna be able to use it. So they're in favor of replacing the ramp as is. They were not in favor when I started talking about extensions, and when I first started looking at it, they were against it, so.
Thank you.
And just finally, I would say that the state switched over to this, what they call their small boat ramp. This is the type that they've been using. They started with Harrington Street.
Correct.
Went to McGansett, and now they're using it statewide. It's a very successful ramp and holds up very well.
With the 6-foot pads, we used to use the 3-foot pads, and as you can see, they used to use the 1.5 pads. The 1.5 pads didn't really hold up that well. You could get a lot of shifting. The 6-foot pads seem to last a lot better. And this location especially, I don't know if it gets iced in. It looks like it has the potential, but anything with ice, you need the 6-foot pads. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Byrd?
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The woman's name.
Thank you, Brad.
Next up, Shelby and Janet Maduri, 4 Nichols Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace the existing seasonal access dock ramp with a longer ramp. Mr. Borselli, sorry for the confusion.
No, that's fine. I had an older version of the agenda. I didn't grab one on the table. I didn't know, so. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Mudari, who are here tonight. I did hand in my abutters cards out of order, so those
Thank you.
those cards were for my hearing. So this property may be familiar to you. It's been before you on a couple of occasions. Most recently, we obtained permission to rebuild the existing concrete retaining wall with a new vinyl sheet piling retaining wall that was installed. It was inspected by staff, and then a certificate of compliance was issued for it. You may also remember we were before you about a year ago, plus or minus, attempting to get permission to rebuild the pre-existing seasonal ramp, walkway, and floats. And we were not successful in getting permission to do that. We reconsidered that and asked for a modification of that application to allow basically what we're here for tonight again, but a lot of things have changed since the last time. So with that, I'll just go through the project. So the Madaris own the property at Lot 148. There's a single-family dwelling and typical appurtenances on the property. They do have the benefit of an order of conditions for a seasonal dock. It received a certificate of compliance very recently. There was some controversy over its licensing that occurred about a year ago. Some neighbors challenged the Chapter 91 license. They suggested that it had become null and void. But ultimately, the DEP, through the Division of Wetlands and Waterways Office and Mr. David Hill, found in favor of Mr. and Mrs. Mudari, and they upheld the original Chapter 91 license. So, as far as we know, there are no outstanding matters of compliance. There's no outstanding matters of licensing with anything on this property as I stand here tonight. So, I want to make it clear that the focus of this project is basically where I'm trying to circle with the mouse right here. You will see that there's a dashed line here that represents a portion of the licensed seasonal dock. That is a ramp that leads from this fixed walkway, and it slopes down and lands on the beach in this location. So currently today, to use this seasonal ramp and float, the applicant has to walk down this set of stairs onto the beach, sometimes during higher tides through the water, onto the base of this aluminum ramp, which starts to grow seaweed on it and is relatively slippery and dangerous, walk up the ramp onto the horizontal pier and then back down a ramp to the floats. This is a velocity zone. So you have regulations that prohibit no new docks or expansions of docks in FEMA-designated velocity zones. What we're hoping we can convince you of is that we can eliminate this sloping ramp that lands on the beach and instead replace it by purchasing a new aluminum ramp that would connect to the same location on the pier, but instead of landing down on the beach, it would simply land on top of this wall so that the applicant will no longer have to walk down the stairs, up the ramp. They can instead just walk across the lawn and over onto the dock here. This new extension from this position to here is basically 8 feet. It would be elevated because the wall is elevated above the beach. It would be elevated so there's a minimum of 5-foot clearance underneath, which is the requirement of DEP for public access underneath. It would eliminate this walkway and sloping ramp being on a resource area and not elevated 5 feet above mean high water, so impeding public access and requiring public access to go through this choke point here. So that is the project. It's limited to that, basically that 8-foot extension.
You good, Mike? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to check my notes. So we submitted the application, we submitted a narrative, and it walks you through the requirements of your local bylaw with regard to extensions of docks in FEMA-designated velocity zones. And I'm not sure that what we're proposing is really what the regulation contemplated. I think it really was talking about extensions on the seaward side, making docks bigger, longer in velocity zones out on the seaward side. I don't know that the regulation contemplated this situation. But that being said, if you read it literally, we need to provide a public benefit. So within the application, you will find the narrative that highlights what the public benefit is. And it's basically, the public benefit is improved public access. Improved public access for the general public and improved public access for the shell fishermen that use this area, which, by the way, is directly adjacent to the boat ramp that you just reviewed. Those same shell fishermen that generally fish this area and access Wacoit Bay from this area submitted a letter, and it's in the application, that supports this application. Even though it's a small impediment in the grand scheme, every elimination of impediments in the tidal zone helped the shell fishermen. So this would be one impediment that would be eliminated for them, and they recognize that as a benefit to them, which we say is a public benefit. And then the general public also has better access. And there's a letter in the file from the neighbors that live in and around the Mudaris, and it's a close-knit neighborhood, and they're friends, but they recognize the plight of the Mudaris and the access issue and the slipperiness of the ramp, and they believe, too, that it's a public benefit for them to use the beach. So I think we've demonstrated there's a public benefit to this when it's balanced against a very minor landward extension that would just facilitate the ease and access and use by the applicant. The main reason that you don't want docks in velocity zones is because in velocity zones, hurricanes can uplift, dislodge sections of docks. They can get strewn into adjacent wetland resources like salt marshes, and they can cause damage by being abandoned in the salt marsh or just by virtue of being blown into the salt marsh. In this case, this very minor 8-foot extension landward, there's a very limited possibility of that, even if the seasonal dock were in the water during a hurricane. But in this case, we've actually further mitigated that concern and obtained a letter from the company that hauls this dock, and that too is in your file, a letter from Little River Boatyard, who maintain and haul this seasonally and store it at their boatyard, that there's a contingency plan, and the letter states that in the event of an oncoming hurricane, that they would mobilize, remove the entire seasonal dock and haul it to their facility, which is on the other side of Wacoit Bay, and store it, so that any concerns about this dock getting blown out during a hurricane are mitigated by that. Even though that wasn't a requirement of the original order of conditions or the Chapter 91 license, and we're only here for this 8-foot extension, I think that is an added benefit in the event of any concern about why you don't want to have docks and velocity zones. So that letter is also in the file. And finally, if I can refresh your memory to the original application again, where we had originally asked for a more substantial dock that we tried to convince you would withstand hurricane forces and would alleviate any concerns about seasonal docks. That application you had denied. And then our fallback position back then even was to just ask for this extension. And at that time, it was denied, I believe, because there was a lot of loose ends, if you will. There was this issue with the Chapter 91 license. There were some concerns raised by, I think, one or two neighbors in the neighborhood that were more about the Chapter 91 application than your review. But it was enough of a cloud that you didn't feel comfortable supporting the 8-foot extension. And in your denial of that 8-foot extension, you had a basis for the denial in the form of findings. In the narrative I submitted tonight, I highlight those, starting on page 8A4, and I tell you how those findings are no longer valid, and I'll just tell you briefly. You had not approved the project and voted to deny it based on these findings. The order of conditions for the seasonal dock had not received a certificate of compliance. Well, subsequent to that decision, it did receive a certificate of compliance, so that's no longer an issue. The commission finds that the existing seasonal structure had not been installed in approximately 7 years. That was based on misinformation from an abutter that was subsequently found to be inaccurate, and as a result, DEP concurred that it was inaccurate and upheld the license. In your package, too, you'll see a letter from DEP that they call a rescission letter, where they rescinded their original opinion that it wasn't licensed, and they upheld the license. So that finding is no longer valid. Finding number 9 made reference to the old order of conditions for the seasonal dock, which did not have a certificate of compliance at the time that you made this decision. That old seasonal dock order of conditions had a requirement for a buffer strip of planting that was not installed. So you made a finding that that old order was not, it was not in compliance with that order because the plantings weren't installed. Subsequent to this decision, again, the plantings were installed. We would have never got the certificate of compliance, which we recently got, if we hadn't put in the plantings. So the applicant did install the plantings. And finding 10 in that decision basically references your regulation that says we did not demonstrate any public benefit. And at the time, we didn't demonstrate a public benefit. We didn't have the support of the local shellfishermen, the general neighborhood, and we didn't demonstrate to you that public access was improved. I think now we've demonstrated that there is a public benefit to doing this. And finally, I think that sums it up. I think I had read all the findings, so. Just in summary, this is a very minor project in our opinion. We're hoping it'll allow us to replace this sloping ramp that lands on the beach by allowing us to make it 8 feet longer so it reaches the top of the wall, which will provide the improved public access. Is beneficial to the shellfishermen, and it makes the applicants' access to their dock safer and easier. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the dock, as Mike says, unfortunately does not meet the strict interpretation of your regulations. It is an increase in the structure in a velocity zone. Mike is right, some of the issues that were in the original denial have been resolved, which is a good thing. But you still have that pesky regulation. And I'm sorry, I do not believe that Mr. Borselli has demonstrated a public benefit with this ramp. There's access, public access currently. There'll be public access if this project is not approved, and this does not meet the level of public benefit. That said, it's really up to the board. The dock does have an order of conditions. It is a seasonal structure. It's just the increase in this structure. I mean, this exact plan was denied. What was it, in 2017, Mike?
Yeah, with those, the
with those
denial was
findings.
based on those findings, though, that are no longer valid.
Well, there are other findings too, like the velocity zone one. You skipped over that one.
Well, I didn't skip over it. I tried to make the point that I believe we've demonstrated there's a public benefit by the letters I submitted and how we've improved access.
No,
You
I know, Mike.
There's an order of magnitude of a public benefit, but it doesn't, the reg doesn't specify the size of the public benefit. There is an improvement to the public.
Again, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Borselli. Other than that, it's a ramp extension. So, the board can make a
extension-
decision.
The word is the misnomer because
Yep.
it's,
Extension.
as Mike pointed out, an extension implies.
And then you have, since I missed telling you, I believe, Amy forwarded you, there were some abutter concerns, and Amy forwarded you that information. That's all we have.
Okay.
Okay. Anything, Brendan?
Nope, you covered it.
If
The
I could just-
plantings are in, the dock was in last year, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, the dock
Yes.
was in last year, so those issues have been resolved.
With regard to the very recent submittal by some concerned neighbor, all of the information in her recent letter was basically a regurgitation of the concerns she had the first time, all of which were dispelled by the DEP, Division of Wetlands and Waterways. So, and just finally, for emphasis, the term extension, this is a very unique case. We're not extending seaward to make a dock longer. We're just extending 8-foot landward just to make access to the seasonal dock easier without any real measurable impact or creation of a concern that you would have for a structure in a velocity zone.
Kevin, I'll start with you. Start with you.
Okay, I really don't, we have that bit about the regulation, but I don't see it as being a problem as long as he's not going for water.
Courtney?
Just so I understand, on your map there, the areas in tan
Mm-hmm.
coincide exactly with the license and any previous order of conditions, is that what you're saying?
Yes, the area in tan, and the area that isn't tan that's dashed here that you can barely see is part of the original approved order of conditions and Chapter 91 license.
So there's
And that
no,
isn't-
other than what you are proposing,
Other than what we're
there's
proposing.
no deviation from the license or a previous order of conditions?
Correct.
Correct, Courtney.
It's just this one
Thank you.
area.
No, I think that's a fair question. I was gonna ask.
No. The majority of the structure is the same, it's just the ramp.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Steve?
No, I will benefit from the CPIT landing project that just happened before us, and I visit this area quite regularly and find that, walked up and down and tried to think about it, and I think it would be an improvement for us as well, since this ramp sits in the water. The shell fishermen actually, right here at Town Landing, are finding oysters. And when they're too lazy to take the boat out. I don't mean lazy, I mean just exploring the local conditions. So I think it's good. I think it's an improvement. And I'm done. Peter?
I think it's an improvement as well. No further questions?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under.
No, I'm not going.
Mr. Chairman.
Boy. So,
Mr. Chairperson.
as I already stated, I think the word extension is a misnomer. I get it, but I'm kinda okay with it. I think it's a trade-off of public benefit. But I like that you got the endorsement of the local fishermen. That goes a long way. So my specific concern is you're gonna have a new path to this ramp.
True.
What are you gonna do for mitigation for that?
I didn't comment on that, but that's a good point. So right in this location, the planting that is here, that if you were to approve it, would have to be removed. We would just probably shift them over to this edge over here, an equal area, so that, you know, you wouldn't have any reduction in the overall mitigation planting area. It's already wrapping up, if you look on the top, this green color here, so we could just thicken this corner by the amount that we would take out here. It would be like a 3 or 4 foot break in that. Those are newly planted and established shrubs, so it'd be easy to transplant those.
So we could condition that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have to do a new site plan, Mike.
And this whole setup in its entirety is seasonally removed,
Yes,
is that correct?
yes, Little River Boatyard is under contract to do that, install it and remove it seasonally.
I have a question, Mike. How big are the posts that you have to put in to hold that ramp, and how long is that ramp, and how many posts?
There's no
Yeah.
posts, which is another benefit, I suppose, because it's gonna be made out of
Oh, stop.
aluminum, and it's just structurally strong enough that it can bridge without any supports.
It's gonna, you have to have some support though, right?
No, it just connects right here, it'll just connect to the pier.
Okay, go to your dock profile.
I don't have it on this plan, do I?
Yeah, you
Oh,
do,
I
it's
do.
right there. Okay,
Yes.
post, right there.
Oh, good, that's great, thank you. If you look at this.
So, yeah, that first one right there, yeah,
There's no post, this is the wall,
now I see that.
and this is the portion of the existing licensed seasonal dock. This is the first set of pipes for that. So there's nothing new being introduced.
Oh, okay.
to
So it's
Yeah.
still the same type of pipe, you're not gonna,
No,
okay.
Mhm.
It's gonna sit right on the existing pipe.
it's gonna connect into this end, just like this ramp that I'm showing
Okay.
here does.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd?
So I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, taken under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mr. Roselli.
Gotta get some Massachusetts plates, though. New York plates, I hate New York plates.
Next up, Nathan Holcomb, 270 Sippowiset Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition, garage, mudroom, screened room, deck, gravel terrace,
Thank you, sir.
expanded driveway, 4-foot wide mulch path, wash station, dry wells, invasive species management, restoration, and all associated excavating, clearing, grading, and landscaping.
Butters cards have been submitted, sir.
Thank you.
Good at that.
Huh?
I like it.
You got a new job, Steve?
That's it, that's his out.
I can fix it. Oh, no, you can't kill her twice in a month.
You got it, Mark?
No?
Do you need assistance?
Maybe.
Might be that one right there, yep. USB-E. Oh, no, that's mine.
Can you go for
It's yours again.
Did you use a USB or a CD?
USB. The red one's yours, right?
Oh, he's the,
Sorry.
I couldn't figure out when the wetland resource was on this. This is a wetland?
Is it not recognizing that port?
Try the local disc one. Oh, I put in the one I had.
Does it not recognize some of the ports?
Oh, there it is.
We've broken it already.
Showed up.
Sit
There's
here,
local
won't
disc.
I know, I was thinking the same thing.
They should be first.
Like, geez, not gonna
Right
be
there.
happy with
Let's
us.
make it order.
You know?
Okay. Now that we got that squared away. My name is Mark Manganello. I'm with LEC Environmental Consultants. I'm representing the applicant and property owner, Nathan Holcomb, who's here tonight. We're here to present a notice of intent for improvements to the single-family dwelling at 270 Sippowiset Road to implement a wetland and resource area buffer restoration plan. The property at 270 includes an existing single-family home that was constructed in 1952, surrounded by landscape plantings and manicured lawn. It's on a lot that's a little less than a half acre. Historically, the lawn on the property extended to the rear of the property, all the way back in this area here. I have a photo that shows it
That's the road behind it, right?
from 2008. So as recently as 2008, this area was still maintained as such, as a, you know, a part of the lawn in essence. See a couple of wetland flags here, so there's a little isolated freshwater wetland in this area. There's the home. There's the, what we'll call the upper lawn area. In 2010, Gwyn Hoyam purchased the property. That's Mr. Holcomb's mother. She resided at the property for several years, maintaining the property until her health declined. She then was unable to maintain the property as it had been maintained historically. And as a result, invasive vines, primarily porcelainberry and multiflora rose, started to
colonize those areas around that wetland. I'll pull the plan back up here. In this area here, and essentially took over all the resource area buffer down here, all the way up here, and into the freshwater wetland itself. And actually started to get into the upper lawn area as well. The freshwater wetland, I should say, it does meet the definition of a freshwater wetland, but it's a relatively low-quality freshwater wetland. It's small, it's less than 500 square feet in size. It is truly isolated in the landscape context. The nearest bordering vegetated wetland or water body is at least 500 feet away. And it's degraded by the fact that under existing conditions, it's becoming overrun with invasive species. It's mostly herbaceous vegetation in there, but there's one willow sapling growing, and it's kind of hunched over right now because the vines have sort of grabbed it and starting to pull it down. The improvements to the dwelling shown on this plan. It's an addition consisting of a garage, mudroom, screened room, and a deck. There's hardscape improvements as well. Reconfiguration of the driveway, the front walkway, a rinse station, this gravel terrace, and a mulch walking path over here. All these improvements you'll see are confined to the outer 50 feet of the resource area buffer, the Zone B. So that's this inner arc here, that's the 50-foot buffer. So all these improvements are in the outer portion of the resource area buffer. The increased coverage in that zone is about 988 square feet. I should also add there's 4 dry wells proposed to infiltrate runoff from the existing structures and the proposed structures. The mitigation is a restoration plan for this hatched area. So this entire area all the way up here is essentially dominated almost 100% by invasive species, and we're proposing to restore it with native vegetation. The property owner and applicant and myself consulted with Crawford Land Management, who I'm sure some of you have heard of. They took a look at this and provided us some input which went into the methodology that's included within the notice of intent for restoring this area. Of course, all the invasive species will be removed, and the plan, you can see there are 10 trees shown to be planted here. The additional hatched areas would be restored as a meadow habitat with a custom native seed mix. And we have a couple of rows of Virginia rose here to demarcate the limits of where the resource area is and where the usable lawn area is. The plan is going to require a significant commitment, as you probably know from some of these similar plans that have been before this commission. This is not the type of restoration plan where you come in once, cut down all the plants you don't like, and everything's good from that point forward. It's a multi-year commitment. The land management company would have to come back and treat the area in the future to make sure that there's no additional colonization by invasive species, and just to sort of protect the work that's been done so far. Mr. Holcomb's aware of that. He's aware that if the commission sees fit to permit this project, that there will be conditions requiring monitoring, and that obtaining a certificate of compliance for this project will require him to demonstrate that this project was completed successfully, that the invasive species have been controlled, and that the vegetation planted has been successfully established. So that's a summary of the project. I think this project has a very significant upside in the benefits of this invasive species control plan. It's about 10,000 square feet in total, compared to 988 square feet of increased coverage by the actual work in the outer portion of the buffer zone. I should also say that this work footprint up here, where that additional 988 square feet will occur, is all previously developed land. There's no naturally vegetated buffer zone areas up here that will be disturbed by those activities. So you have a little under 1,000 square feet of additional work in a previously developed portion of the buffer zone up here, and then 10,000 square feet of a very degraded wetland and resource area buffer here that will be restored by the project. So with that, I will turn it over to the commission for some questions.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff has some concerns with this project. Number one, we always like to see a restoration project. In this case, they are moving a lot of invasives. They are invasives, granted, but the proposal is to basically revegetate that area with a meadow mix, and that's usually something the board doesn't usually allow. That said, staff would be okay with that if the applicant actually mitigated for the increase in impervious surface. So the staff would like to see that that almost 2,000 square feet of required mitigation to be shrub material, as is required by every other applicant that appears before this board. That be placed as close to the wetland as possible, and then the board can discuss whether or not to allow the remainder of the invasive area to be planted with the meadow. If you look at the restoration plan, that meadow is to be brush mowed. I think number said, it says brush mowing of native grasses and vegetations around plantings to reduce competition. 7, brush mowing native grasses to help suppress annual weeds or to help establish warm season grasses. And then 8, once the warm season grass mix is established, the restoration area will be mowed once every 2 years to maintain the plant community and meadow habitat. So there really isn't going to be a hardy plant community there. It's going to be mowed, a meadow. So staff cannot support this project unless we at least have the 1,976 square feet of plantings required by the proposed improvements to the home. That said, if you look at the plan and you look at the proposed terrace, gravel terrace on your plan, I have a very hard time that gravel terrace is going to be constructed in that configuration. We've seen a lot of these, Jamie. It's not realistic to staff, I'm sorry. Maybe shift that screen room. Whoa, where's my little
I think
north?
I can speak to the gravel terrace if I could. I spoke to Mr. Holcomb about
Okay.
that, and he thought that if anything, if that configuration was going to change, it would actually be reduced to sort of square it off, but there's no intention of bringing that into the Zone A at all.
It can't come into the Zone A.
Right.
And honestly, it just doesn't seem like a realistic configuration to me. I've been doing this for a long time, as you know, Mark, and so have you, and it's just not realistic. It's not functional. Have you actually, if the applicant does really want that outdoor terrace, I know you said it's a substantial boulder on that side. Is there any, have you looked at maybe, I know this board has approved of projects where we've had to have things blasted. I remember a project in West Falmouth with a pool. You were on the board, right, Jamie?
Yeah.
And they had to blast the rock to get it out.
Yeah, I think
is that a consideration if they really want that outdoor patio space to kind of shift that room over and shift that patio over and get everything the applicant would want?
I think we did some testing there, right, to determine the size of that boulder, and it was very large. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think that's viable. I think the
Okay.
costs and.
I'm just throwing out possibly some options.
Yeah, if anything, we might modify this to square it off and make it look the way it would be more likely to be constructed.
Yeah.
You know,
Give me a realistic terrace.
yeah. I understand.
Something that when Brendan here goes out for compliance, he doesn't see something a little bit different.
Okay, we can work with that.
Mhm.
As far as the plantings go, I understand the concern there. I think we felt that, you know, most projects you would require 2,000 square feet of plantings, because that's 2-to-1 ratio is what you require. And it's typically shrub plantings, and it's typically in the Zone A. We don't have that square footage of shrub coverage. We do have some here. We also have 10 trees, which counts for something. But we have 10,000 square feet of invasive species removal, and you know, I know most projects don't have that amount of restoration, and you know, that's a real significant improvement to this resource area, which, you know, it's not a great resource area. It really isn't. It's not high quality, and having an upland meadow around it, managed every 2 years, will be, you know, a very unique and significant habitat area.
But you could also put a shrub habitat layer. I mean, usually when this board permits restoration projects, Mark, as you know, they want that mass back. They want the biomass back, and they usually don't allow the removal of 10,000 square feet of. They are invasive, but they're still a shrub material to be replaced by a meadow. I can't think of one. In this case, we would consider allowing some of that invasive removal area to be, you could put your mitigation plantings where that is, which is something the board generally doesn't allow or doesn't permit. But I have to stand firm that the applicant needs to comply with the mitigation requirements, just like every other applicant that comes before the commission.
Would you consider some flexibility in the location of those? So, in the front yard currently, there's a nice hedge of bayberry that's kind of spreading around
It needs to be near the wetland,
this area.
and as close to the resource area as possible, Mark.
Okay, we were thinking of
So,
running it along here to sort of create a permanent barrier.
and I want to
Here.
protect the wetland and enhance the wetland and it is, you're right, it's not a very high functioning wetland, but let's actually improve that.
I mean,
Okay?
I think we
And I think
absolutely are,
I
aren't
think
we?
you will. I think you can, but I also am gonna stand firm that shrub material can come around the backside of maybe that wetland.
You know, this restoration is
Yeah.
very expensive. It
I
really is.
understand that.
And that's really the concern. The cost just goes up and up with the plantings, and
So
We're
we're
trying
gonna
to
do
do
all
something
of the
that's-
home improvements, but we don't wanna do the required mitigation because it's too expensive?
you know, it's all
I understand.
part of one big bill.
That's the only comments the staff has, Jamie.
So clarify for me, if you would.
Sure.
The stone driveway, does that constitute previously disturbed areas
Where you're looking at,
where the new additions are going? Correct me if I'm wrong, you're not counting that in mitigation?
no, if you look at the plan, I think, Mark, you're only counting the purple and the blue, right? The gray area,
Gray area,
yeah,
where
the
the
gray area
driveway
is
was.
not being counted.
As new
As new.
coverage?
Yeah, as new coverage.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's just the light blue and the purple, Jamie.
That's right. 'Cause
So
that's an
the
existing
stone driveway is already factored in, it's not being,
We subtracted the
So
footprint.
works there as
yeah,
advantage.
they subtracted the footprint of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. You good? Peter?
You have on the drawing approximate location of septic system from card. Is it a Title V already, or?
Yes, I believe the septic system was upgraded in 2010 when Ms. Hoyam purchased the property.
No further questions.
So they use the as-built as a reference,
Okay.
not necessarily verified, if that makes any sense. Steve?
I have to say I found this fascinating. The overgrowth is substantial, to the point where it was very difficult for me, even walking up Haynes, to try to delineate the wetland carefully, and then trying to figure out where these Virginia roses were going to go. I was trying to find a center point for this circle and where that actually was. And I still don't know, because I still don't understand what planting trees in right-of-ways. But,
There's a, let's see, I think there's a note on the plan that points to that. The deed, I believe, grants ownership to the center line of the roadway. 'Cause it's a
absolutely,
private-
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So you're taking your half of it and making it not a roadway.
No, this doesn't go into the roadway. The edge of the roadway is here.
Well, it's a 40-foot right-of-way, and that,
That's right.
my estimation of the currently passable way is 20 feet wide.
So 40-foot right-of-way, private.
So planting in a right-of-way, I mean, we
I
don't.
mean, we did it, you know,
Gunning Point.
I argued it
Not
at
gonna
Gunning
place a
Point, and where they were planting bamboo in the right-of-way. But first of all, I didn't think that was a great idea, period. But, yeah, I don't understand this planting in right-of-ways.
Well,
It may be local, you know, I'm not
Yeah.
a native.
No, I understand the
Well, we
question.
don't
I mean, this is a surveyed line of the edge of pavement here for this roadway, so I can't really speak to anything aside from that's a surveyed
Well,
feature.
when I walked up it, it was pretty clear that it certainly wasn't a 40-foot right-of-way, that
The width of the
the
road.
existing road.
Yeah, right, so it appears that it's,
I assume there's a reason it passes just to a few houses, or does it continue?
yeah, I don't think it's very long, is it? Yeah, no, it's not very long. The logic for us for doing this, I mean, you know, by doing this, we're increasing the size of our restoration area, which is increasing the cost of this. But because this area is also overrun with invasives,
Yep.
if we don't do it here, we're just setting ourselves up for a long-term management headache, because the seed bank will be there, the porcelain barrier, I mean,
Right,
it's kind of, you do it all or,
as you probably do at the, eastern edge of the property as well, but in the abutter,
this way,
yes.
yeah.
It was entirely different than most of the projects that we look at because of the water, and all freshwater wetland restoration areas are equal, regardless of how their current condition might be. And we should treat them that way. But when I was reading the proposal, I thought the meadow sounded significantly superior to the current. But as far as
That's great,
a reg,
Steve.
what?
That's great. I mean, that's fine if the board wants to.
I
go
just,
over it. But
yeah.
what I'm saying is, the mitigation for the expansion of impervious surface should strictly follow what this board requires every other applicant, which is native shrub plantings.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I don't argue that. You know, I try to visualize
Oh, it'll look
projects.
a lot different when the meadow's in there.
And I never get the house right when I visualize it, by the way. As coming down Sippawisset Road in that house that we approved, it's a monster. Anyway.
Focus.
So, I'm focusing. What do you think of the plantings that are between the house, staff? Between the house, the plantings that are between the home and the wetland that are proposed, the Virginia?
Yeah.
Does that look like a good?
Well, I don't wanna see a monoculture of Virginia rose out there, but they could supplement that to make that 12,000, I mean, that 1,900, whatever square feet of plantings. They can just add it to that Virginia rose area and kind of wrap around that wetland. I want to see the plantings on the property and not in the right-of-way. We always require that.
I agree.
And other than that, that's fine.
I think if the commission, well,
I'm done,
I'll let
Mr.
you
Chairman.
guys continue commenting before I comment.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, just.
Thank you. Kevin?
I have two natures about this. Having walked the site, I have to think that any effort to restore the wetland, which, by the way, I couldn't find.
Right.
Okay, is to be lauded. And it just, I mean, a meadow seems to be a great improvement over the existing conditions. I mean,
That's fine. If the board wants to allow for the removal in the meadow, that's, you know, that's your prerogative. What the staff is saying is that in addition to that, the applicant should be required to put in the required mitigation for the expansion of the structure. So look at it in two parts. I think you're getting confused. The structure expansion is one thing, mitigation for that. That's kind of cut and dry. You start wavering on that, and we're gonna be rewriting these regulations in a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna
Okay.
stand my ground on that, guys.
okay.
But you still have, what did you say, the entire restoration's 10,000 square feet, Mark?
10,000.
That's the entire hatched area. You still have 8,000 square feet of meadow.
Right, so they're not losing that.
You're not
Well,
losing the meadow.
but so then if you're requiring us to do the 2,000 square feet of shrub plantings, what's our incentive to do the rest of the restoration? We comply with the regulation if we just do a 2,000 square foot set of plantings around the wetland.
Okay.
There is none.
And the only thing, the only result of that is that we have plantings put in that are surrounded by invasive species.
Okay.
I
I'm
don't
not wavering on this, Mark, and do not go down that road, because if the board starts going down the road that you're gonna be, well, what gives us the incentive to do this? I mean, the incentive is, they want the mudroom, they want the proposed screen room, they want the garage, they want the patio,
And they want to get rid of the invasive.
and they wanna get rid of the
Do.
invasives.
It's almost 2. Kevin, anything further?
No, I'm stuck.
Mr. Byrd?
I have nothing to add, no questions.
Okay.
And you're lucky the meadow conversation's even taking place, because if some of your fellow commissioners were here,
Yeah,
Oh, gee. Oh, yeah.
that's why you chose
Okay.
tonight.
That's why we're talking tonight.
walked in, surveyed the crowd,
see how
and
they'd be
came on a
opposed
good
to
night.
I wish I had those powers.
So for clarification, that can be covered, that 1,976 feet can be covered in deliberation.
Well, we would want to see a revised plan. It's really if the applicant's going to agree to that. Mark, if you want to continue and so you can consult with your client, that's absolutely fine. We have a fairly light agenda next week, so if you wanted to take a week and consider it and consider your options, that's fine. We're meeting next week. It's a very light week. We can,
Can we have a minute?
yeah, we can table the discussion.
No, just
Absolutely.
for literally 30 seconds, we'll.
Okay.
Table it. We'll give him a
If it's
second.
not more than 30, because I don't want our poor town engineer to sit here anymore. Oh, okay, great, thanks. I just wanted to give you an opportunity for those grants. Okay, excellent, thank you.
We'll take the continuance for 1 week.
Okay,
Okay.
that's great.
I'd move a continuance at the request of the applicant until March
Oh, wait,
6.
6th. Sorry. Second, anyone?
Yes, a second?
I think it just gives you the ability to discuss it, that's
Yep.
all. Okay.
Okay.
And I understand your issue.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of continuance to 3/6, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
That's interesting, huh?
Let's take a break so we don't rush through these things.
No, it hasn't been open.
Next up, Town of Falmouth, care of Jim McLaughlin, DPW,
Sorry, Jim.
164 Turner Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to replace an existing failing 36-inch pipe culvert under an existing bog road. Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James McLaughlin, Town Engineer. And we've submitted a notice of intent to replace or repair an existing culvert. The culvert is in the Coonamessett River. This is Hatchville Road, Sam Turner down this way. And Coonamessett River runs from the Coonamessett Pond down along here, under the roadway, and then comes along this way here, through the middle of the bog, across this cart road, and then continues on down. So the access is a gravel road off the paved way. There's a building on the site here, which is a building for the remediation of the Camp Edwards groundwater issues. I believe that it's currently inactive, but it's still, the building itself is still there. So this is the access road that goes between the two bogs. The Coonamessett River is over here on the left. This is the remediation building for the groundwater. You can see there's a vehicle parked here. That's the parking area for the access off the road, and it's gated at this location here. So the driveways around the bogs are gated off, but there's a lot of pedestrian access and dog walkers, and MES will be using this, or does use this road in terms of access when need be. This is the continuation of that access drive, and this is the location here where the culvert goes underneath the access road. It's a 30-inch pipe. This side is the inlet. It has a control structure that allows for stop logs or flashboards to be inserted in this channeled area here, so that you can block off the bog and basically stop the flow of the Coonamessett heading downstream. I'll also point out that over in this area here, and I'll point it out a few times, there's some areas along the existing cart road that are eroded, and part of the plan is to improve that situation also. And this is another view of the erosion here. You can see this whole area here was once the bank went out to the face of this box, control box, and it's now all eroded out. The downstream end of the pipe, as you can see here, is broken off and collapsed into the downstream bog. And again, you can see the erosion along the downstream side, and also where the corrugated metal pipe has deteriorated and is completely gone in this location here. And this across through here is about where this section of the pipe is broken off and is fallen into the bog. This is a view of the inside of the pipe, looking downstream from the box, and you can see there's a little bit of daylight here. That's that area that's been broken off, and further downstream, you can see where there is no daylight. That's where the pipe is submerged down into the water. So what we're proposing is to replace the existing 30-inch corrugated metal pipe that's located here. This is the access road coming in with a 24-inch plastic pipe. And the initial, and I should say, the reason that we've asked for a few continuances is to look at some alternatives that, from when we first started with the notice of intent, which was to dig this out and replace it with a new pipe. The current proposal, the revised proposal, is to insert a 24-inch plastic pipe from the downstream end up inside the existing pipe, that way avoiding any excavation in here, and sealing it off at both ends. So the plan is to insert the pipe from the downstream, push it up, and up in the box area here, extend it about 18 inches beyond the existing pipe. So when we get to the graded structure at the upstream end, we'd push the pipe up, and then on both the upstream end, this is the box here, on the upstream end as well as the downstream end, we'd have to break off the existing section of that CMP that's deteriorated. We'd install a grout concrete collar on both ends, and that will seal the pipe into the existing pipe. So the current pipe is 30 inches, and the new pipe would be 24, so we'll have about 3 inches around, which is basically about the width of a brick, to grout around and seal it in. The erosion control would be wattles and silt fence along the access road here on both sides, and then silt fence down at the downstream end as well as the upstream end. The plan also basically shows the same photos that I showed previously, the access road in, the box structure, control structure in the eroded area here, and then the downstream here. In addition to the pipe replacement, we're also proposing to repair the erosion that's in this area here as well as in this area here. And the plan is to install a 2-to-1 slope with a geotextile fabric rolled down and stapled into the new slope, and then hydroseed that to stabilize these areas on both sides of the edge of the bog. So the resource areas that we're impacting, this hatched area here is the work in the buffer zone, and basically that's repairing the existing cart road. Let me just go back one. The cart road is rutted out, and so we're proposing to install dense grade in the ruts and level off the existing roadway. And so that would be an improvement to the road that's in the buffer zone. The total area in the buffer zone is a little over 2,400 square feet, and that's this area that's cross-hatched in red. In addition to that, we'll be disturbing some of the bank area here on the upstream as well as the downstream side. The length of that bank area is 26 feet total. And then in terms of the erosion areas that we're proposing to restore, this is about 10 feet, and this area here is about 190 feet. So the total between the two areas here is 199 square feet that we'd be restoring for the erosion. And I think I've covered the extent of the project. This is what some of these installations look like. We had a representative from Interflow Pipe Systems come out and look at the site, and they'll actually be on site during the construction to assist with the installation. The expectation is that it takes a few hours to push this pipe up. If it's needed, you can wrap a chain around it and use a machine from up on the graveled road to pull it through, but the expectation is that two people in the water on the downstream side should be able to push it up through. And that's one of the eases of installation that's made this an attractive solution. In the event that you have a long run, they have these small little areas where they pump the grout in. In our case, which is going to be a 3-inch gap all the way around, the intent is to do it by hand, and the whole thing should take about half a day to finish. So we would, on the upstream side, what we would do is install the stop logs, and that will allow us to work in this area here, install that grout on the pipe that's going to extend out 18 inches beyond the existing pipe here, and then we'll be able to work relatively in the dry, and the same with the downstream, because we'll have the water contained here. And like I said, it's basically about a half day's work, and the grout cement that's utilized is a quick set. It's an hour or two to be fully functional. And that, I think, is it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Won't that pipe rest on the bottom?
Excuse me?
Won't the new pipe rest on the bottom?
Well, the new pipe is plastic, so that'll, I wouldn't expect that'll rust, and we're gonna be grounding it in on both ends. And I think this box structure here is pretty stable, so that, I don't think we'll have an issue with that end of it for sure. And the other end will be basically supported at the downstream end by the existing stream.
Thank you. Jen?
Jim, what's the life of something like this?
Oh, the plastic pipe? Easily 50 years, easily.
All right.
What rots around it that's gonna matter.
I know, that's what's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
This culvert's been collapsed for a while. We need to do something. There's a lot of different things. I want to daylight the whole thing, but nobody seems to be on board with that. It just needs to be fixed. This is an easy way to fix it, correct, Jim?
It's a non-invasive.
Yeah.
It just remains that you still have a galvanized pipe that's rotting away.
Yeah, I'd rather just remove everything and daylight it, but we just don't have that. I don't think we have that luxury right now.
Not a high-traffic area either, so.
It's the herring rot.
Right.
That's the issue right now. And Jim, will that pipe will just disintegrate around it?
Eventually, but, you know, the other thing that will happen over time is, and it's certainly happened with the existing, is, you know, the sediment that's in the bog in the river will line the bottom of the existing pipe, so it'll become a more continuous flow through the entire system there.
How old do you think that galvanized is?
Oh, I don't know, I'd say at least 30 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
We have no question.
Courtney?
No question.
Kevin?
You have no qualms about restricting the amount of flow that you can get through?
Yeah, that was a question from the state, and the wrong way. What happens with the, excuse me, the plastic pipe, and you can see it on this chart, a 30-inch pipe, CMP, replaced with a 24-inch liner inside of it, actually increases the flow by a little less than 25%. And the reason for that is, you know, the three things that affect the flow in the pipe are, of course, the size of the pipe opening, the slope, and then the roughness coefficient, the Manning's number for friction. And with the plastic, it's so much better that it actually, even a smaller pipe size,
Smoother inside, it's smooth inside.
Increases the flow by, in this case, almost 25%.
Good?
I used to know that. In fact, I used to never.
You know, for years, these plastic pipe manufacturers have been trying to sell the product based on you can install a smaller pipe than you would if it's concrete, and, you know, it's in theory cheaper. But really, the advantage is not so much the price of the pipe or the size of the pipe, but it's the installation, because, you know, if it were concrete, you need a machine, throw a chain around it and put it into place and ram it in each length of pipe, whereas with the plastic, you know, a laborer can carry it to the site and install it, really. And that's the true advantage of the plastic.
Steve?
So just, I think it's fine, but you seal the ends, and then you pump concrete in around the plastic pipe,
No.
between the galvanized pipe and the plastic pipe?
No, that would be for a long run. In this case here, where it's just one length of pipe, the manufacturer, the supplier, has had a lot of success
Okay.
with doing just the ends.
Okay. I
And
just
he's installed
was
quite a
reading that.
few, and he'll be on the job, assisting with the installation, so,
So 6 months of planning and half a day work.
there you go.
Way to go.
2 hours of waiting at a meeting. Peter?
I just want to go back with the flow, and on the drawing, it is pointing to a 30-inch
Right.
pipe, and on the drawing, it's showing a 36-inch corrugated pipe.
Yeah,
How come that's being highlighted 30 versus 36 actual?
yeah, well, you know, done a lot of survey out there. Originally, when we looked at it, we thought it was a 36, but it's actually a 30. When we went out and measured it with the supplier, we modified that. So it is a 30-inch, not a 36.
Okay.
Sometimes it's kind of tough to, you know, you see these guys out standing in the water there. It's kind of tough to measure it sometimes when there's flow in it.
Okay, so the erosion probably occurred because the water level was too high for the flow rate, and it went over the road or went up high or whatever?
Possibly. I think what happens with a lot of these bogs and dug channels in general is, you know, the backhoe just digs down and places the spoil a lot of times for the access road. And they don't really have a uniform slope, and a lot of times they have it's almost a vertical slope where they dig these ditches. So they're not particularly stable to begin with. And then over time, it's whatever flow there is will just wash it away. And you're right, in particular, in the areas of high flow around the inlet and the outlet, you get some turbulence around that in times of high flow, and that's what causes that erosion around the inlet.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Any more discussion from the board? Mr.
I'll
Burke?
move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous, so moved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Next up, order of conditions. First of which, Ralph and Tricia DePisa, trustees, 94 Westwood Road, Falmouth, Mass. from 3/6/19.
This one
This-
was, let's see,
Brenda's gonna leave this, I wasn't here that night, Brad.
just grab my notes. So there's 2 leach fields because of the slow perk rate, but that's well outside of jurisdiction. And I believe Kevin made a couple comments about
Mhm.
taken down, but those are also outside of jurisdiction.
Yeah.
What else? There was a deck enlargement over time, but, they're pulling the house back and not increasing footprint at all, so that's not, it's kind of a moot point. I believe they need to show the stairs down the riprap on the plan. I don't think, it was either a printer issue or they ran out of ink or something, but they, they don't show the stairs, the proposed stairs. And there's I believe one native tree being replaced, and we just got a condition that, and then native shrubs that they're volunteering to put in. Just have to condition that those be from the native species list. That's all I got.
Covered everything I wrote.
Yeah,
Did we have something about the perk rates of the 6 dry wells? There was some concern about the perk rates.
Yeah, if they, I think we discussed that if they dig it and it needs suitable soils, it would have to be.
Had to be replaced. Yeah, Maureen made a point about that, because if the perk rates of the leach fields were
Yeah.
slow, then pretty much the dry wells in that area are gonna be pretty slow.
So they have to confirm suitable soil or,
Confirm suitable soil.
They just have to increase the leach area.
Yeah.
mhm.
all right. Take a motion if you got one. Anything else?
Motion to accept the staff's recommendation on order of conditions.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Next up, Susan Morse, 206 Quistit Avenue, Woods Hole, Mass, from 3/6/19.
This is the cobble, nourishment down on Quistit along, they tried the core fiber rolls that have failed, and I believe
Right.
the commission was pretty much all in favor of the cobble nourishment being put in. I don't recall any specific conditions that you guys wanted. I didn't get any, I don't think.
Just about the tree being cut, if it's not salvageable, that it gets flush cut, not excavated.
Yeah, it's not salvageable. I mean,
Is that a big one? That's over the bank?
Yeah, it didn't look,
the roots are entirely
but just that it would be
flushed out.
excavated. Anything else?
There was some concern about the cobble extending closer and closer to the salt marsh, and whether we were creating apparent separation or a possible flow. But I think where it ends now is fine.
I think everybody was
But
on board with
eventually,
that.
that access road is, still, it's just the next step.
There's quite a discussion about movement in and out, seaward and landward of the cobble, but they didn't make many points about whether it was extending or being washed into the salt marsh.
All right.
Right.
I think inevitably, maybe some of the cobbles might end up down there in a big storm, but I mean,
They get core fiber rolls in that salt marsh now.
All right.
Right,
yeah, those are all over the place.
right,
So this stands about a chance anyway.
okay.
All right. We have a motion.
Motion to accept the staff's recommendation, approve.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Next up, Michael O'Brien, 331 Edgewater Drive West, Falmouth, Mass, 3/6/19.
So we wanted to move the stairs away from the salt marsh.
Mhm.
Yes.
Everybody on board with that?
Yes?
Yeah. And we closed, that was basically it. We closed the hearing with, that stipulation on a revised plan.
Move to accept as discussed.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Last,
I don't have this one.
Ryan Rapazki, 12 Turtle Pond Road, Falmouth, Mass. from 3/6/19.
This one, they had an increase in impervious surface with big stone steppers in the yard. Mike Berselli added the mitigation plantings to the plan. We closed the hearing with a condition for a revised plan to kind of rearrange the plantings, because there's a big cherry tree in the front yard that he couldn't plant under. I just gotta remind him to get us the revised plan.
Condition it.
We'll condition it, yeah. We're fine with the number of
You're
plantings.
okay with that,
Yep.
though?
Yep.
Okay.
Condition the plan, yeah.
All right.
I'll move to accept as discussed.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. We are adjourned.